Hey, Heritage Church family, you are watching the 5th episode out of 10 in a series we're doing through the book of Proverbs. And today we're going to be looking at Proverbs chapter 26, verses 4 and 5. And I chose these verses because on the surface there seems to be a problem. And maybe you've been reading these verses before and thought to yourself, how do these two things work together? They seem, on the surface at least, to be saying two different things. But what we're going to see today is that no, they're not talking about two different things. In fact, they're talking about two complementary truths, much like there are two sides of the same coin. And so let's read these verses together and seek to come to an understanding that we can apply to our lives. Verse 4 says this, Proverbs 26, verse 4, it says, "Answer not a fool according to his folly, lest you be like him yourself." Answer not a fool according to his folly, lest you become like him himself. Then verse 5, answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own eyes. Answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own eyes. Which raises the question, which one is it? Do we answer a fool according to his folly like verse 5 says? Or do we answer not a fool according to his folly like verse 4 says? And I think what we need to see here is that this phrase, according to his folly, and remember we're trying to think through how can we study and learn and apply the scriptures for ourselves. The question we need to ask is, what does this phrase, according to his folly, what does it mean? And what I'm going to argue is that it means two different things in these two different verses. And here's an illustration that might help this become more clear. Have you ever seen, or maybe you've been a part of something where two people got into an argument? Maybe, you can imagine that someone had road rage and they got next to a car and they pulled it off to the side of the road, and then someone just got out and started blasting someone for something they did wrong. Okay? Imagine that situation in two different ways. The first is this. The first guy gets out, he's really mad, he's talking to the person, he's yelling at him, and then the second person just starts yelling back, "Oh, I didn't do that, you're completely wrong, you cut me off, you're such a horrible driver," and then they just start yelling at each other and it just escalates. Well, what would that be an illustration of? Verse 4. That would be answering a fool according to his folly, which is what the proverb says not to do. If you're in a situation like that, don't do what the other person did. And we have our own kind of proverb for this. Don't stoop down to that level. In fact, it's interesting, this word in the Hebrew, lest you be like him, actually has that very idea of not being on the same level, literally level ground. Don't put yourself on level ground or on the same level as someone else, lest you be like him yourself. So in a situation like that, don't fall prey to that temptation. Don't answer a fool according to his folly. Don't do the same thing that he's doing. But verse 5 gives us a different picture. Imagine if that same person pulls someone over and they start yelling at them and they just say, "You're a horrible off-road driver, you're worthless," all these things. Well, then it says, answer a fool according to his folly. That doesn't mean do the same thing as the fool does, but give an answer that actually addresses the real issue. You can say, "Listen, I put my blinker on and you didn't see it. I'm sorry." And that might take care of the situation. Or if the person is irate and you know that there is going to be no solution, just don't deal with it. I'm sorry, have a good day. I'll talk to you soon. God bless you. But the point is this, if you answer a fool, you need to answer something that's dealing with the real issue, not something that is done in the same way that the fool comes at you. And here's kind of the principle. Foolishness can be contagious. And we all in our flesh deal with this, that when someone comes at us or someone says something to us or someone gossips about us or someone says something mean regarding something that maybe we've done, we want to do the same thing. We want to get even. But what it says is don't answer a fool according to his folly. If you're going to answer him in a way that addresses the issue, lest he be wise in his own eyes, but don't stoop to the same level. And here's the point. Or maybe even another point when it comes to these Proverbs, is that the Proverbs teach us that in life there are situations, in fact one pastor said it like this, the Proverbs are speaking to the 80% of life that isn't black and white. And what God wants us to see is that he's willing to give us wisdom, but we always have to trust in him. It's not as if the Proverbs are just a playbook for every situation. The Proverbs remind us that we always have to trust in God, and if we do, if we lean on Him and not on our own understanding, He'll give us the wisdom we need. Sometimes that brings us to a hard situation where we have to answer a fool, and in those moments, we trust that if we seek to honor God, He will give us the wisdom we need.